Have you ever stood in the middle of your living room surrounded by the noise of your family? The TV blaring, the kids laughing, your husband scrolling through his phone, and felt completely, achingly alone? Like you're performing a role: wife, mother, caretaker. But no one truly sees the weight you carry? The way your shoulders tense when you hear, "What's for dinner?" After you've just cleaned up breakfast, packed lunches, and answered a dozen tiny demands before noon. The way you swallow down your exhaustion because someone has to keep it all together. You laugh when he makes a joke at dinner, even though your chest feels tight with words you're afraid to say. Do you notice how tired I am? Do you ever wonder what I need? But the fear stops you. The fear of being dramatic, of ruining the mood, of hearing that sigh. The one that says, "Here we go again." So you bite your tongue and tell yourself, "It's fine. It's just a phase. Maybe I'm expecting too much." But here's the truth. You're not imagining it. You're not too sensitive. And you're not alone. So many of us smile through the exhaustion, tuck away our resentment like a secret, and lie awake at night wondering, is this really what love is supposed to feel like? Today, let's talk about the unspoken struggles in marriage, the ones we whisper about to our best friends but rarely admit out loud, the loneliness that creeps in even when you're lying right next to him, the way your heart sinks when you realize he doesn't even know how much I'm hurting. Because the hardest part isn't the mess or the long days or even the unfairness of it all. It's the quiet, the way your love feels like a monologue instead of a conversation. But here's what I want you to know. Your voice matters. Your needs matter. And today we're going to talk about them, not as complaints, but as truths that deserve to be heard. You ask him about his day as soon as he walks through the door. You listen intently when he vents about his boss, offering thoughtful advice. You remember his big presentation was today and ask how it went before he even mentions it. But when was the last time he initiated that same care for you? Not just the automatic, "How was your day?" tossed over his shoulder while scrolling through his phone, but the kind of question that shows he's truly present. That meeting you were nervous about? How did it go? Or, "You've seemed quiet today. Is something on your mind?" You test the waters sometimes, sharing small pieces of what's troubling you. Maybe you mention feeling overwhelmed with the kids' schedules, or how that comment your mother made still stings. But his response cuts deeper than silence ever could. His eyes dart to his phone as you speak. He offers a distracted, "That's rough," before changing the subject. Or worst of all, he turns it into a joke. "Well, that's just how moms are," leaving you to swallow your hurt. Slowly, without either of you realizing it, you stop sharing altogether. You become an expert at turning conversations back to him, because at least that way you're talking. The loneliness settles in your bones, heavy and familiar. You're right there beside him every night, yet somehow you've never felt further away. The cruelest part? He likely has no idea. To him, everything might seem fine. But you're left wondering, if you disappeared tomorrow, how long would it take for him to notice something was missing? Not just your cooking or cleaning, but you. Your thoughts, your fears, your quiet hopes that no one ever asks about. You see the coffee mug left on the counter, again, with dried rings staining the surface where he couldn't be bothered to wipe it. The toothpaste cap that somehow never finds its way back on no matter how many times you mention it. The grocery list you meticulously made that he forgot to check before stopping at the store, coming home with everything except the one ingredient you needed for dinner. But the physical mess is only the surface. Your mind constantly runs through invisible checklists. Did you schedule the pediatrician appointment? When was the last time the car had an oil change? Your niece's birthday is next week. Should you pick out a gift or remind him to handle it this time? You know if you don't do it, it simply won't get done. When you finally gather the courage to say something, the response is always the same. An exasperated sigh, a defensive, "I was going to do it later," or the classic dismissal, "You're so controlling. Why does it matter if the shoes are by the door or in the closet?" Slowly, you begin questioning yourself. Maybe you're too particular. Maybe it's easier to just do everything yourself than deal with the tension. So you bite your tongue and add one more task to your mental load, while resentment builds like layers of dust in corners no one else notices. The most painful realization comes in quiet moments. He's capable of being detail-oriented at work. He remembers every stat for his fantasy football team. But at home, suddenly he's helpless. And you're left wondering if he wanted to, wouldn't he? It begins with small moments that lodge themselves in your heart like splinters. The morning you wake up with a migraine but still pack lunches because no one offers to help. The evening you spend an hour scrubbing the kitchen while he watches TV, never once asking if you'd like company. The way he sleeps peacefully through the baby's cries night after night while you stumble through the dark, exhausted. At first, you brush it off. Everyone has rough patches, right? But the splinters multiply. You notice how quickly he volunteers to help his friends move, yet can't remember to take out the trash without being asked. How he plans elaborate surprises for his coworkers' birthdays, but forgets your anniversary until the last minute. The breaking point comes unexpectedly. Maybe it's when you find the empty ice cream container put back in the freezer. Maybe it's when he asks, "What's for dinner?" as you're elbow deep in soapy water. Suddenly your hands shake and your vision blurs. Not because of the ice cream or the question, but because of everything they represent. All the times you've swallowed your needs to keep the peace. What follows is worse than the anger. It's the shame. You chastise yourself for being petty. You scroll through photos of happy couples on social media and wonder why you can't just be content. The cycle continues. Resentment, explosion, guilt, repression. Each time, the quiet between you grows heavier, filled with all the things you wish you could say but don't. You start keeping score without meaning to, counting how often you initiate affection versus how often he does, noticing who apologizes first after arguments. The numbers always seem uneven, but voicing this feels childish, so you stay silent. The love is still there, but it's buried under layers of unspoken disappointments that neither of you know how to address. You spend Sunday afternoon preparing his mother's recipe exactly how he likes it, the way she used to make it before she passed. The kitchen fills with familiar aromas that take you back to when you first dated, when he'd light up at your thoughtfulness. Now he eats 3 helpings without comment, his eyes fixed on the game. Later, you'll find the leftovers left out on the counter, the careful meal now spoiled. At work, you rearrange your entire schedule to attend his important presentation. You sit in the front row, nodding encouragement, capturing photos he'll never ask to see. Afterward, when his colleagues swarm with congratulations, you hover at the edge of the crowd holding his coat. That night, he celebrates with coworkers while you cancel your yoga class to relieve the babysitter. You memorize the rhythm of his bad days, bringing tea when his shoulders tense during stressful projects, taking the kids to the park when he needs quiet. But when you come down with the flu, he forgets to check if you've taken medicine, leaving empty soup cans on your nightstand like artifacts of care. The absence of gratitude manifests in subtle erosion. You stop wearing the perfume he once complimented because he hasn't noticed it in years. You abandon the habit of leaving love notes in his lunch when you find them crumpled with the trash. Your gestures become smaller, less frequent, until one day you realize you've begun rationing your affection like something precious that's being wasted. What hurts most isn't the lack of thank yous. It's the unspoken message that your efforts are expected, not valued. That your love has become part of life's background noise, as constant and unremarkable as the hum of the refrigerator. You begin to wonder if he'd notice if you stopped trying altogether, or if it would take weeks for him to detect the growing chill where your warmth used to be. The alarm rings at 5:30 a.m., and before your feet hit the floor, your mind is already racing. You remember your daughter's science project is due today, the one she mentioned in tears last night. You mentally compose the email to her teacher asking for an extension while brewing coffee with one hand and packing lunches with the other. Down the hall, your husband sleeps through his alarm again. At breakfast, you mediate between squabbling siblings, using that calm voice you've perfected even when your temples throb. You catch your son's nervous glance at the clock. He's worried about his math test. A quick pep talk and a squeeze of his hand, and you make a mental note to check his grades online later. Your husband chats breezily about his golf game this weekend, oblivious to the emotional current swirling around him. When the dishwasher breaks that evening, you're the one who researches repair services while simultaneously helping with homework and fielding a call from your mother. Your husband sighs dramatically about the inconvenience, then retreats to the garage. Later, you'll lie awake cataloging tomorrow's emotional tasks, remembering to ask about your daughter's dance audition results, checking if your mother-in-law got her test results, ensuring your husband takes his medication. The weight shows up in places no one sees. The way your jaw clenches during family dinners, the headaches that start precisely at 3 p.m., the Notes app filled with reminders for everyone's needs but your own. You've become so good at anticipating storms that no one realizes you're constantly adjusting sails. What breaks you isn't the work itself, but watching him relax completely while you're always partially on duty. The way he can mentally clock out the moment he walks through the door while you remain hypervigilant to every mood and need in the household. You fantasize about what it must feel like to be truly off, to have someone else notice when the emotional reserves are running low and say, "I've got this," without being asked. This version makes the invisible labor visible through concrete moments while preserving emotional authenticity. Would you like me to develop another section similarly? You bite your tongue when he forgets your anniversary for the third year in a row, swallowing the disappointment like bitter medicine. The last time you mentioned feeling hurt, he rolled his eyes and said you were being dramatic. Now you carefully measure every word, every emotion, terrified of that familiar sigh that makes your stomach drop. You stop telling him about your bad days at work after that time he interrupted with, "Everyone has stress." You learn to cry quietly in the shower instead of reaching for comfort. When you do risk being vulnerable, you immediately backtrack. "Never mind, it's stupid," before he can dismiss you. Date nights become minefields. You want to share your excitement about finally getting that promotion, but stop yourself when you see him checking his phone. The words die in your throat, replaced by practiced small talk about his job, his hobbies, things that won't risk his annoyance. Slowly, you become a smaller version of yourself. You stop playing your favorite music when he's home because he once called it annoying. You hide the novels you love after he mocked their covers. Even your laugh changes, quieter, more controlled, because you remember his comment about it being too loud at that dinner party. The cruelest part? He likely has no idea. To him, you've just mellowed out. He might even praise how low maintenance you've become, unaware that each compliment carves away another piece of who you used to be. You watch other couples share inside jokes at restaurants, see friends lean into their partners for comfort, and wonder when you started treating basic emotional needs like impossible demands. The voice in your head whispers, "This is just how marriage is," but another, quieter voice asks, "If love means constantly making yourself smaller, is it really love at all?" You catch yourself staring at real estate listings during lunch breaks, scrolling through photos of cozy studio apartments with sunlit reading nooks. In these daydreams, there's only one towel hanging in the bathroom, one plate to wash after dinner. The calendar on the fridge contains only your handwriting, your commitments, your life. On particularly exhausting days, you mentally calculate what it would take, how much you'd need to save, which friends might let you crash on their couch. You imagine the conversation where you finally say, "I can't do this anymore," playing out both the relief and the inevitable guilt that would follow. These thoughts always come with a sharp stab of shame. You picture your children's confused faces, your mother's disappointed sigh. You remember your wedding vows and wonder if wanting more makes you a failure. So you shake the thoughts away, pour another cup of coffee, and keep going. But the fantasies return in quiet moments. When you're folding his laundry and realize he's never once washed your clothes. When you hear him laughing loudly with friends while you sit silently in another room. They're not really about leaving, these daydreams. They're about rediscovering the woman who existed before she became someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's emotional caretaker. What you're truly longing for isn't an escape, but the freedom to exist as a whole person. Needs, messy emotions and all, without apology. The fantasy isn't of being alone, but of being seen, of being met halfway, of waking up one day and realizing the weight has been shared without you having to ask. If any of this resonated, I want you to know your pain isn't petty, your exhaustion isn't dramatic, your needs aren't selfish. Marriage shouldn't feel like a solo act. It should be a duet where both voices are heard, both hearts are tended. Change doesn't always mean leaving. Sometimes it means finally standing up inside your own life and saying, I matter here too. And whether that leads to hard conversations, therapy, or simply a quieter kind of courage, I hope you choose yourself. Not just for your sake, but for the love you still believe in, the love you deserve. If today's story touched something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe so we can keep these honest conversations going. And if you have a story of your own or need advice on something you're carrying in silence, drop it in the comments. I read every word, and who knows, your story might become the next video that helps someone feel a little less alone. This is Marriage Matters, and your voice matters here.